Julius Caesar is known for his death, for he was murdered by the senators on that fateful day in March, otherwise known as the Ides of March. Julius Caesar dismissed his personal guard, believing that he appeared stronger walking alone to the Senate house in Rome. Then a soothsayer approached Julius and warned him about the Ides of March. Julius Caesar dismissed her, believing that the soothsayer was merely trying to frighten him. He would live just long enough to regret that decision. Long before that fateful day, Julius Caesar led campaigns, brilliant in strategy, bloody in result. On one of those campaigns, Julius Caesar invaded Egypt and found the royal family in turmoil. A power struggle was unfolding between two half-sisters, Cleopatra and Arsinoe. Julius supported Cleopatra, thereby helping to establish her as Queen of the Nile, but not before facing resistance from Arsinoe. In direct defiance of Julius Caesar and Queen Cleopatra, Arsinoe named herself Queen of all of Egypt. Arsinoe then waged war against Julius and the Romans. She achieved a great victory at the lighthouse. And in the chaos of Queen Arsinoe's victory, Julius Caesar had to leap into the water to avoid certain death. Julius even held the scrolls of his plans for future attack on Arsinoe over his head, for he did not wish for the plans to fall into Arsinoe's hands or to be lost to the sea. Julius launched a counterattack against the Queen of Egypt, Arsinoe, and she was eventually defeated. Leaving Egypt for Rome, Julius Caesar kept the fallen queen, Arsinoe, with him during the journey. As Roman custom dictated, Arsinoe was paraded as a captive of Rome through the streets, a burning lighthouse appearing behind her, once symbolizing her great victory over Julius Caesar. Now the burning effigy of a lighthouse revealed her great fall from power. Arsinoe was going to be strangled on the foot of the Roman steps leading to the Senate house, if not for a surprising act of mercy by Julius Caesar. Her beauty or her age may have prompted the Roman crowd gathered there to show mercy on Arsinoe, and Caesar agreed to their demands, being as much a showman as politician and military leader. With Arsinoe tucked away in exile in Rome, that left her elder half-sister Cleopatra free to rule Egypt, so long as she paid proper respect, sending money and goods to Rome. And Rome was soon becoming to represent Julius Caesar, for Caesar had an eye towards his future, a future that included his dynastic ambitions to being elected as the first emperor of Rome. He was close, so close, at achieving that goal. His plan was revealed one day during one of Rome's celebrations, where a friend and political supporter of his, Mark Antony, offered Caesar a crown. A crown, a potent symbol of the kings of old. And Julius Caesar, with the roaring approval from the crowd, accepted the crown. It was symbolic of Caesar's power, an emergency power that had been granted to him during a time of war 4 years ago, a power that he had refused to give up now, 4 years later. And now it seemed that Julius Caesar had plans to set himself up as the King of Rome. The senators gathered, some plotting to kill Caesar, rather than see him claim the power of a king. None was more outraged than Brutus. His ancestor had killed the last king of Rome, and now Brutus was determined to kill Julius Caesar before he had the chance to set himself up as the king of Rome. The senators, led by Brutus, stabbed Julius Caesar to death in the Senate house, and on the very day that the soothsayer had warned Julius Caesar about some time ago. The Ides of March would be forever linked with the murder of Julius Caesar. Octavian achieved what Julius Caesar had died for. Julius was executed by the senators. The senators bestowed the title of emperor to Octavian. The rise of Octavian was ensured with a successful campaign against the lovers, Mark Antony and Queen Cleopatra of Egypt. A campaign that was mixed with politics as well as with family fighting. For Octavian's sister was married to Mark Antony, the same Mark Antony who was eagerly engaging in an affair with Cleopatra, the Queen of the Nile. Cleopatra and Mark Antony fought a great naval battle against Octavian and a trusted ally of his, Marcus Agrippa. Octavian and Agrippa prevailed that day during the battle that would otherwise be known as the Battle of Actium. And soon after, Queen Cleopatra tried to seduce Octavian, as she had done so with his great-uncle, Julius Caesar, and his brother-in-law, Mark Antony. However much her charms had worked on those two political men, Octavian was not interested in engaging in an affair with Queen Cleopatra. Shortly after, she and her lover, Mark Antony, took their own lives. Octavian left Egypt and returned to Rome in triumph, and for his service to Rome, he was awarded the title of emperor by the senators. Octavian subsequently changed his name to Augustus. Emperor Augustus set about maintaining the empire and giving back to the empire. Much of his own money was poured into new building projects and entertainment for the people. The people adored his public image as the Great Father. He was also known as a kind uncle to his niece and nephew, the children of his sister and Mark Antony. Augustus also started a family of his own. His wife gave birth to their daughter Julia. However, shortly after, Emperor Augustus divorced his wife and married Livia. Now, he was looking to the future, deciding that his heir should be his nephew, Marcellus. Tragedy struck, for Marcellus died under suspicious circumstances, possibly food poisoning from the hot summer, or food poisoning. Even during that time, Empress Livia was suspected as being responsible for Marcellus's death, because Emperor Augustus showed more favor to Marcellus than to Tiberius, her elder son from a previous marriage. Emperor Augustus, meanwhile, was sincerely struck by the loss of his nephew, Marcellus. For dynasty purposes, Augustus arranged a marriage between his daughter Julia to his reliable ally, Marcus Agrippa. Julia and Agrippa had several sons, the youngest being called Posthumus. Later on, after Agrippa died, Julia asked if she may marry Tiberius, the elder son of Livia and stepson of her father, Emperor Augustus. The marriage between Tiberius and Julia started with promise and dissolved so into chaos. Tiberius left Rome, possibly hoping his wife's affairs would be discovered. Some time passed for word to reach the emperor about his daughter's affairs with many men. However, when the truth was revealed, Augustus banished Julia from Rome. He would never see her again. War loomed on the horizon. It all started with a frantic message that a rebellion was happening at the Rhine, thereby threatening Roman rule. The Germanians placed captured Roman soldiers in wicker cages and burnt them alive. Emperor Augustus sent Germanicus, a loyal and brilliant general, to defeat the Germanians. And once the Germanians were vanquished, order again was restored to Rome. For a time. The next threat would be far closer to the aging emperor. News reached the aging emperor that his own grandson, Posthumus, had been accused of all sorts of crimes. His crimes may have been true, or may have been fabricated against him. And who would want to do that? Livia, the wife of the emperor. For Empress Livia wished to see her own dear son Tiberius to succeed Augustus as emperor. And Livia knew that for her dream to become a reality, she would first have to remove Augustus's last grandson from ever being considered as emperor. She got her way, for Augustus banished his last grandson, Posthumus, to an island off the coast of present-day Italy. There has been much speculation about how far Empress Livia went to secure the throne for her dear son Tiberius. Some historians have even argued that she killed Marcellus, Agrippa, Drusus, among others, with the use of poison, and also arranged for the banishment of Julia and Posthumus, and all to clear the way for her own son to become the next emperor when Augustus died. Livia may have even sped up Augustus's fate by poisoning the figs that he ate. Whether by murder or not, the first emperor of Rome, Augustus, did die, and with him slowly died the stability of the Roman Empire. For Augustus, when living, had been an overall firm and fair emperor. Without his guidance, Rome would bear witness to the slow cracks in the Julian dynastic surface. A surface that had started off strong, but would slowly dissolve into the subsequent emperors embodying anarchy, madness, apathy, and flame. Tiberius was passed over as the emperor's heir time and time again. Emperor Augustus, his stepfather and adopted father, had preferred his nephew, his grandsons, and others, and all before Tiberius, until each candidate for the second emperor of Rome died mysteriously. If not for the ambition of Empress Livia, who was his mother, Tiberius may not have been named the second official emperor of Rome. There was one who could have easily challenged him, though, Posthumus, the last remaining grandson of Augustus. However, Posthumus was killed, possibly on the order of Tiberius, though Tiberius publicly denied any responsibility for the murder. Now, Tiberius had no rival for his power, though. Tiberius made it clear that he planned to enact changes to the empire, and soon his eye was cast upon one of Rome's most popular hobbies, the games. A seasoned warrior, far before becoming the emperor, Tiberius knew the grim reality of battle, and so he hated the gladiatorial games in Rome and elsewhere in the expansive empire. For his own set of reasons, the emperor shut down the gladiatorial games, and by doing so, the people hated their new emperor. Emperor Tiberius did not hate violence, though, for he did not shrink away from ordering executions. In fact, he sent a direct command for the execution of Jesus of Nazareth. Emperor Tiberius also had to face threats from within his own family. His niece, Livilla, and her lover Sejanus plotted to take over the reins of government by killing the emperor. Livilla's own mother revealed the plot to the emperor. Having left Rome for his island retreat on Capri, Emperor Tiberius did not know who to trust. For Sejanus, once a seemingly loyal ally to Emperor Tiberius, had now betrayed him, and nearly to his death. However, Tiberius turned to Macro, a man who could not rise in power so long as Sejanus was alive. Macro saw a chance for his own advancement, and crushed the uprising against the aging emperor. Sejanus and many of his co-conspirators were killed in Rome. Livilla, Emperor Tiberius's niece and lover to Sejanus, was starved to death in her own bedroom, the door remaining firmly locked until she finally died. Now the emperor fostered paranoia against enemies, both real and imagined. He wanted to frighten the senators through treason trials. The trials were rigged to produce guilty verdicts. Every time a senator was convicted of treason, his money was given to the emperor. That only motivated Tiberius to hold more treason trials against the frightened senators. Emperor Tiberius's gaze soon turned to nurturing an heir. He thought of no better heir than his own great-nephew, Caligula. The emperor believed that Caligula, upon turning 17, should join him at his secluded villa. That's where Tiberius reportedly enjoyed throwing people off the side of a 1,000-foot cliff into the water below. It was no wonder then that Caligula spent time trying not to anger the aging emperor. Caligula, however, saw a chance to speed up the old emperor's end. Caligula, or a man who he paid to do so, smothered Tiberius as he lay in bed. And so passed the second emperor of Rome. And the reign of the third would soon begin. The third emperor, Caligula, would start his reign with promise, lulling many people into a false belief that stability had again emerged for the political arena of Rome. However, power would prove corrupting to Emperor Caligula, for Caligula would earn the title of the Mad Emperor. Caligula translates to little boots in Latin. His true name was Gaius. Story has it, when he was a young boy, Gaius had joined his father on military campaigns, and the soldiers called young Gaius by the name Little Boots, otherwise known as Caligula, because of the small sandals that he wore as a child. As the years passed, Caligula grew to hate that name, but he was never known by his true name, Gaius, only Little Boots, Caligula. Caligula came from a broken home. It was not expected that he would even survive, and it was no wonder about that, because many of his close family were murdered. His father, Germanicus, was likely poisoned. His two older brothers were executed by the second emperor, Tiberius. Tiberius sent Caligula's mother into exile, and desperately she took her own life. That left Caligula and his sisters as the only surviving members of their childhood family. Their family had been destroyed by one man, Emperor Tiberius, and Caligula, recalling the fate of his childhood family who had died under Tiberius's orders, avenged them all by smothering the emperor in his sleep at Capri. That is a theory. It may have been just as likely that the emperor took to his bed and died from old age. What is certain was Caligula's steady rise to power after Tiberius's demise. However, officially, Caligula was not emperor yet. The Senate had to bestow that title upon him, and they wasted no time in doing just that. For the Senate was impressed with Caligula's flattering words and his respectful demeanor. Caligula was named by the Senate as the third emperor of Rome. Caligula promised to rule differently from his predecessor Tiberius, for the newly appointed Emperor Caligula claimed that he would not hold treason trials against Rome's most elite to frighten them all into silence. Emperor Caligula then burnt the papers associated with the treason trials, and he freed any men who were waiting for a trial during the reign of Emperor Tiberius, thereby making this new emperor beloved among the people. The emperor also reopened the games, thereby providing popular entertainment to the masses again. Caligula is reported as thinking that the gladiatorial games were not bloody enough, though, and so Emperor Caligula devised a way that made the games more gruesome by our standards, more entertainment to theirs. Intentionally, two gladiators would be paired together with inadequate weapons, one man with only a shield, and the other with only a sword. Or a starving animal would be introduced into the arena, and against a man who intentionally had no weapon. That was the style of games that Caligula reveled in and encouraged. Gladiators and beasts alike were dying for entertainment, their last recollections likely being the sound of thunderous applause by Roman spectators. And the people loved their new emperor for the blood and death that he brought. Clearly, Emperor Caligula controlled who lived or who died. He was reported as saying, "Let them hate me, so long as they fear me." However, even Emperor Caligula could not control the illness that suddenly struck him, for he nearly died. And when he finally awoke, Caligula was very, very different. Starting that fateful day, Caligula should be known as the Mad Emperor. The descent into madness all started when Emperor Caligula ordered for the execution of his cousin and heir, Gemellus, because Caligula believed the boy wished to overthrow him. Caligula also broke his old promise, for he reordered the treason trials against Rome's elite, forcing some senators to commit suicide rather than risk public executions. However, Caligula shocked Rome with an announcement. Caligula claimed he was a living god. The prominent statues were replaced with images of his own. Sometimes he would pose as a statue and revel in it when people would worship him. Caligula changed from being Jove one day to Poseidon on another, if only in his own mind. He even wished to make his prized horse, Incantardus, a senator, going so far as to bring the horse to dinner and making the announcement in front of the senators. It remained unclear if Emperor Caligula truly wished to grant the title of senator to his horse, or whether Emperor Caligula enjoyed insulting the senators who were present. A rumor persisted that Emperor Caligula was expecting a child with his favorite younger sister Drusilla. When she died, and she was possibly murdered, Emperor Caligula announced her divinity. There was also another rumor that at a public dinner, Caligula joked that he could have any man or woman's throat cut at his command, before he wildly laughed. Caligula also had aspirations to outdo his remote relative Julius Caesar, for Caligula wished to establish his own reputation as a keen warrior. Emperor Caligula marched the troops of Rome to the very edge of France. His plan was to invade England. He knew that Julius had tried and failed years ago to take the island. Then the invasion took a strange turn, because Emperor Caligula ordered his seasoned troops to attack not England, but the ocean waves instead. At the order of the emperor, his men attacked the water with their swords. At his other order, his men picked up seashells. The plan to invade England, a feat that even Julius Caesar failed at accomplishing years before, was abandoned. It is unclear why Emperor Caligula ordered the men to attack the ocean and collect shells. It may have been a misguided belief that he was the god Jove, waging war against the god of the ocean, Poseidon, or the emperor was humiliating the hardened warriors of Rome when they refused to march any further. Caligula had been emperor for nearly 4 years, and he would have never guessed that he did not have much longer to live. His idea to move the capital from Rome to Egypt was enough for some senators and guards alike to plot his death. Then the plot unfolded. Caligula was stabbed to death by some of his own guards and by some senators, and so ended the reign of the Mad Emperor. His own uncle would succeed him. Whereas Caligula wanted the power, his own successor winced at the thought of being emperor, for with the crown came the power, the threats, and likely a brutal death. Now, emerging from the chaos that Caligula created was his old, terrified, clever uncle, Claudius. Claudius was one of the few in the Imperial family who had outwitted and outsurvived his brutal nephew, Emperor Caligula. Now, Claudius would enter the political arena as the fourth emperor of Rome, elected not by the Senate, as custom dictated. Claudius was propelled to power, a power that he did not want, by the Praetorian Guards. The guards first kidnapped him from the imperial palace. Then the guards hailed old Claudius as the new emperor of Rome. A fool. His own family had called Claudius a fool, among other names, for years, and yet this man had lived when many others around him had died under the reigns of his uncle Tiberius and his nephew Caligula. Claudius was reportedly not interested in becoming the emperor of Rome, though when the opportunity arose, he situated himself as the fourth official emperor of Rome. His wife, Messalina, was beside him as Rome's new empress for some of the time. However, during private moments away from Emperor Claudius, the new empress was entertaining her lovers. Claudius either chose to look the other way or refused to believe the rumors about his wife's many infidelities. Messalina had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Her children may or may not have been the biological children of her husband, Emperor Claudius. Over time, Empress Messalina convinced one of her lovers that he would be a better emperor than her husband Claudius. And when they actually married in public and tried to turn the Roman people against Emperor Claudius, he responded in turn. He ordered for their arrests, then for their executions. Now Emperor Claudius was without a wife, for a time. The aging emperor chose an unlikely candidate for the next empress of Rome. For Emperor Claudius, believing that he'd found a proper wife in his niece Agrippina, soon married her. Claudius also adopted her son from a previous marriage as his own son. The son of the new empress was a young man called Nero. Emperor Claudius and Empress Agrippina decided that for the sake of the Julian dynasty, their children should marry. And why look outside the Julian family? The emperor and empress decided that their children by different partners should marry, and thereby keep the power centralized. The Julian dynasty's future seemed secure for the next generation. Emperor Claudius also led successful campaigns abroad. Learning from the perceived mistakes of the past 2 emperors, Claudius did not take away the games from the people as Tiberius had, nor did Claudius order for his men to attack the ocean waves as Caligula had. It seemed Emperor Claudius was successful as he engaged in a reign as the 4th Julian emperor. Emperor Claudius, a remote relation to Julius Caesar, even succeeded where Julius Caesar had failed, for Claudius oversaw a successful invasion of England, thereby establishing that island as part of the vast Roman Empire. When Emperor Claudius arrived to the newly conquered England, he did so by riding an animal that the people had not seen before. For Emperor Claudius arrived riding an elephant. The emperor had proven himself at battle. He was admired by many Romans and feared by the provinces. However, even Claudius would prove that no man can resist the deathly effect of poison. It all started on a seemingly normal night, when the emperor was enjoying dinner with his family. His wife Agrippina fed her husband a mushroom, a seemingly innocent-looking mushroom. The mushroom, as many historians believe, was laced with poison. Soon Emperor Claudius was dead. The last resemblance of stability for the Roman Empire under the rule of the Julian family died with him. The next emperor would prove to be the undoing of the entire Julian dynasty. His name was Nero. What an actor dies in me. The last words of the last reigning emperor from the Julian dynasty. Nero certainly made an impact during his reign as the fifth emperor from the Julian family to rule Rome. Supposedly, Nero became emperor after his mother, the empress, enticed Emperor Claudius into eating a poisoned mushroom at dinner, thereby hastening his demise. Nero ascended to the throne, engaging in an affair with his own mother, or so rumors claimed. Likely, Nero also decided that he would kill the only son of the last emperor, Claudius. One night during dinner, the old emperor's son drank from a goblet and fell to the floor in convulsions soon after. And the newly appointed Emperor Nero calmed the nerves of everyone there by claiming that the old emperor's son had fits just like Julius Caesar, and it would all pass. The old emperor's son was dead soon after, and a hurried funeral took place, leaving most of Rome's elite with the impression that the new Emperor Nero killed the old emperor's only son. No rival for Nero's power truly existed now. Nero set aside his first wife and ordered for her to take her own life. Rumor has it, Nero even wanted to see her severed head to ensure that the grisly task was done. For Emperor Nero wished for a new wife and reportedly married again. The marriage would not last, though. Upon losing his temper one night, he kicked his second wife to death. Many historians claim that story as fact. However, with political successors who did well in tarnishing dead emperors, and with the passing of millennia, the truth of it all is lost in time. In his time, Nero appeared to like being emperor because of the benefits of royalty, but he cared little to none about the responsibilities. Nero really wanted to be an actor instead of an emperor. Often he would force Rome's elite to watch him on stage and expect applause from his captive audience. Nero even left Rome altogether to engage in an acting tour in the provinces. And when Emperor Nero returned, he cemented his power by killing all who opposed him in Rome. Now he believed his own mother was a threat, for Agrippina wished to politically influence him whenever she saw him. Nero responded by having her murdered. However, the first attempt on her life failed, for his mother Agrippina had survived. Nero, however, did not give up, and by the end, his mother, a former empress of Rome, was dead. And now, the last of the constraints on Nero's power had been removed. Emperor Nero now engaged in more decadence than before, proving his reign to be overall corrupt. He even cheated the money system by having silver coins filled partially with lead, and then pocketing the silver. If this were to be discovered by Rome's elite who bought the coins, the emperor's life would be at risk. The emperor also planned to build a private swimming pool for himself, where the Colosseum presently stands in Rome today. It was no wonder, then, that Nero, with his blatant disregard to his people, was reported as fiddling when Rome burned. Some say he even ordered for the fire to be started to make room for another construction site, a palace dedicated to himself. Naturally, rather than take credit for the fire that ravaged Rome, he blamed the Christians and killed many. However, Emperor Nero's own life was coming to an end. He had lost the support of the people. The angry mob wanted his life, for his life of decadence, his brutality, and his recklessness with public funds had turned his own people against him. Nero decided to end his life. However, he was reported as being too frightened to kill himself. Instead, Emperor Nero ordered a servant to kill him with a sword, but not before proclaiming his last words, "What an actor dies in me." And with Nero's death came the end of a time when all of Rome was under the rule of the Julian family. The time of the Julian family was over. Now the battle of the emperors began. The Julian name being reduced to the very dust at which Rome once burned. Loyalty and blood bound them for a time, until power drove them apart. And now they exist in history, their names being forever intertwined, and inspiring over 2 millennia of interpretations of who they were when they were once living.